Have you ever felt like something dark was weighing you down, but you couldn't explain why? Like a shadow following you, even in the brightest room? Maybe it's the constant anxiety, the sudden mood swings, the heaviness that lingers in your chest when everything seems fine. It's easy to blame stress, relationships, or bad luck. But what if the problem isn't just in your head? What if it's in your home? What if something you see every day is slowly draining your peace, feeding off your energy, and silently destroying you from the inside out? Most people never consider that the objects around them could be gateways for destruction. We've been trained to focus on what we can touch, what we can prove. But evil doesn't always leave fingerprints. It doesn't announce itself with thunder. It whispers. It hides. It blends in. And that's how it wins, by staying invisible. There are items you may have allowed into your home, gifted with a smile or picked up out of curiosity, that are not as innocent as they appear. Objects with energy, objects with history, objects that were created, charged, or used for one purpose: to open the door to darkness. This isn't superstition, this is spiritual warfare, and most people are asleep in the middle of it. You see, not every battle is fought with fists. Some are fought in silence, through nightmares that won't go away, relationships that keep breaking, money that slips through your hands no matter how hard you work. And when you keep praying but nothing changes, it's time to ask, what am I allowing into my life that's working against me? That's why this moment matters, because once you know what to look for, you'll never be vulnerable again. Once you remove what was planted to harm you, your peace returns. Your clarity comes back. Your strength begins to rise again. You deserve to live without that invisible pressure suffocating your joy. You deserve to wake up feeling free, not fearful. But freedom starts with awareness. You can't fight what you won't face, and you can't remove what you can't see. Right now, someone is watching this thinking it's just a coincidence, that the mirror from that yard sale is just a mirror, that the necklace from that ex is just jewelry, that the strange dreams and emotional chaos are just part of life. But deep down, something in your spirit knows better. You feel it. That chill when you walk into certain rooms, that tension that never goes away, that feeling that someone or something is always near, even when you're alone. The truth is, energy never lies. You may not always understand it, but you can feel it. And everything carries energy. Every object, especially the ones that have been owned, touched, or used by others, can carry spiritual residue. It can either lift you or trap you. There are witches and practitioners who understand this deeply. They don't just cast spells in the air. They attach them to objects. They give them form. Because it's easier to curse someone when the curse has a body, a mirror, a ring, a doll, a painting, a symbol. These things become the open doors that evil walks through. But here's the most powerful truth. Once you recognize these objects, once you take action and remove them from your life, everything begins to shift. The pressure lifts, the fog clears, your prayers start to flow again. Your strength, your energy, your purpose, they return. Because you've closed the door the enemy was using to enter. You've broken the agreement, you've reclaimed your ground. And this is the reward waiting for you if you stay until the end. Clarity, protection, power. You'll learn the hidden objects witches use to destroy people quietly, so you can spot them, remove them, and protect your space with authority, because no one deserves to be manipulated by forces they don't even know are there. You are not helpless. You are not meant to live in confusion. You are not a victim. But you have to wake up. You have to pay attention. You have to act. The world is full of energy, both good and evil. And your home, your body, your spirit, they are sacred. Nothing has the right to take up space in your life that doesn't serve your peace. This is your time to cleanse what should have never been there, to cast out what was invited without your permission, and to reclaim the light that was always meant to be yours. This isn't about fear. This is about freedom. Real, lasting spiritual freedom. And it begins now. Some of the most dangerous enemies are not the ones who shout at you, but the ones who silently watch you. They sit quietly, reflecting your face, while pulling at your energy in ways you can't explain. You glance at them every day, unaware they've been opened like a door, unknowingly placed in your life as spiritual bait. One of the most overlooked yet powerful gateways witches and energy workers use to access your inner world is something almost every home has: a mirror. Not just any mirror, but mirrors with history. Mirrors gifted by people you no longer speak to. Mirrors bought from thrift stores, estate sales, or old homes. These are not just objects of reflection, they're potential portals. You think they're just glass, but in the hands of someone who understands spiritual energy, they become tools. Mirrors have long been used in occult practices to trap spirits, channel demonic forces, and even spy on the souls of others. And when placed with intention, they become much more than decoration. They become a spiritual invasion. Ask yourself, why do you feel drained when you walk past certain mirrors? Why do you avoid looking into one late at night, even if you don't know why? Why do arguments, confusion, and heaviness linger in the rooms they occupy? It's because some mirrors don't just reflect, they collect, they absorb energy. And if a mirror has been used in dark rituals, it may be holding on to more than just a reflection. It may be holding on to you. Witches understand energy better than most people do. They know that the spiritual realm is always listening, always watching. So they use mirrors to open communication with what you can't see. Some use them to summon, others to trap. And some, worst of all, use them to send chaos into your home while pretending nothing's wrong. The mirror becomes a silent witness to your most vulnerable moments, your thoughts, your emotions. And if you've been marked, it becomes a channel that sends your pain back to its source to be used against you. This is why spiritual cleansing is not a ritual for the superstitious, it's a necessity for the aware. Your environment shapes your reality. Your space affects your spirit. And when you allow objects charged with darkness to live in your home, you invite disruption into your peace. It's not just about removing the mirror. It's about recognizing its energy, feeling what it brings into the room, trusting your intuition, especially when something feels off. Because your spirit knows what your eyes don't. You weren't created to live in confusion. You weren't born to struggle under invisible burdens. That constant sense of being watched, the emotional heaviness when you wake up, the negative thoughts that seem louder near certain objects, it's not all in your head. Some mirrors have been used as weapons. Some have been positioned to block energy, to disturb rest, to reflect your spirit back in distorted fragments. And every day you pass them by, something inside you grows more anxious, without understanding why. But this is where the shift begins. Because now you see what you couldn't before. Now you know that spiritual warfare doesn't need flashing lights and dramatic music. Sometimes it looks like an antique mirror hanging quietly in your hallway. And just by knowing, you take back power. Just by recognizing, you reclaim control. It starts with awareness and it ends with action. So what do? You listen to your spirit. If something in you hesitates around a certain mirror, don't ignore it. If you've been having nightmares, if you feel watched, if your peace has been slowly draining from the room it's in, pay attention. You don't need to live like that. You don't need to justify fear or discomfort. You have the right to remove anything that doesn't support your peace. You are the keeper of your space. You decide what stays and what goes. If a mirror doesn't serve your energy, it's not worth the risk. Cleanse it, cover it, remove it. Declare out loud that no spirit, no energy, no darkness is allowed to linger in your home. Your words carry power. Your authority matters. You don't need permission to cleanse your environment. You just need the courage to believe that your peace is worth fighting for. And it is. Because once you take control of the objects around you, something changes. You begin to think more clearly. You sleep more deeply. You feel lighter, freer, more connected to yourself. That's not magic. That's truth. That's alignment. And it starts the moment you stop tolerating what drains you and start protecting what uplifts you. Not every object in your home is just decoration. Some are doors. And you get to choose which ones stay open. You get to decide what kind of energy lives where you rest, where you pray, where you grow. Don't let silence fool you. Just because something isn't loud doesn't mean it isn't working. The question is it working for you or against you? Your mirror might not just be reflecting your image. It might be reflecting your weakness to something waiting to take hold. But not anymore. Now you know. Now you rise. Now you remove. Because your home should be a sanctuary, not a trap. And your spirit should never bow to anything that can be shattered. If a mirror can hold spiritual residue, imagine what happens when something touches your skin, day after day, without you realizing what it carries. The jewelry you wear isn't just an accessory. It becomes a part of your energy field. It touches your pulse. It moves with your breath. And if it carries darkness, it doesn't just sit on your body. It seeps into your soul. So many people walk around wearing chains of the past, thinking they're wearing beauty. They don't realize those rings, bracelets, and necklaces have stories. Stories that didn't begin with them. Objects hold memory, and some jewelry is soaked in the energy of heartbreak, betrayal, or even witchcraft. Someone may have blessed it before giving it to you, but not all blessings come from a place of light. Some are wrapped in smiles but rooted in control. That gift you received may have been a spiritual hook, a way to tether your peace to someone else's pain. You may think, but it's just a ring, it's just a necklace. No, it's not. Jewelry has always been used as a spiritual tool. Ancient tribes, cultures, and even dark practitioners understood that when something touches your body, it merges with your aura. It becomes a silent channel. It can protect or it can possess. And when it's created or given with dark intention, it begins to shift your energy in ways you can't explain. Emotional numbness, heavy thoughts, sleepless nights, unexplained sadness. That's not random. That's residue. Think back. When did you start feeling off? When did things start going wrong? When did that fog settle over your life? Look at what entered your world around that time. That piece of jewelry you never take off. That item you keep wearing because it was expensive, or sentimental, or came from someone you once trusted. But what good is keeping something beautiful if it's destroying you in silence? Witches and spiritual manipulators use jewelry because it bypasses logic. You don't question it, you wear it, you admire it, you keep it close. That's how it works. It bonds with your energy before you ever notice. And once it's on you, it doesn't need permission to affect your spirit. That's why some people can't break free from soul ties. Why they still feel haunted by past relationships even years after they ended. The bond wasn't just emotional, it was spiritual. And the jewelry, that was the anchor. But here's the truth they never want you to hear. You don't owe any object loyalty. You don't owe any gift a place in your life, especially not when your peace is the price. You are allowed to let go of things that carry pain. You are allowed to remove what no longer feels right. You don't need a perfect explanation. If your spirit feels uneasy, that's enough. Because your intuition is wiser than your excuses. And your body knows what your mind hasn't accepted yet. Some things were never meant to stay. Cleansing isn't just about burning sage. It's about bold choices. It's about looking at something you once loved and realizing it's hurting you now. It's about having the strength to say, I choose peace over memory. I choose healing over history. Whether the jewelry was a gift, a family heirloom, or a reminder of someone who left, it doesn't deserve a place on your body if it's leaving scars on your soul. If you've been feeling stuck, weighed down, or unable to move forward, ask yourself, what am I still carrying that isn't mine? What am I wearing that might be cursing me quietly? You weren't created to live in bondage to things. You were made to walk in light, and light can't flow through metal that's soaked in darkness. Your body is sacred. Your energy is sacred, and anything that touches it should honor your spirit, not harm it. Don't let fear convince you to hold on. Don't let attachment trap you in spiritual cycles. That ring, that chain, that bracelet, if it carries anything but peace, it's time to let it go. You have nothing to lose by releasing it, but you have everything to gain: clarity, strength, protection. Because when you remove what's been draining you, your true self begins to rise. You feel lighter, you breathe easier, you think clearer, you finally feel like you again. This is not just about objects, it's about ownership. About reclaiming your space, your body, your power, because the enemy doesn't always come with horns. Sometimes it comes in velvet boxes. Sometimes it comes through things you loved once, but that love has long turned into a chain. And now it's time to break it. You're not weak for letting go, you're wise. You're brave. You're protecting the one thing that truly matters, your spirit. And the more you release what's harming you, the more room you create for what's meant to bless you. So take one final look. Not with your eyes, but with your spirit. If something inside you says it's time to remove it, listen. Because peace is waiting on the other side of your courage. Once you realize that something as small as a ring can carry the weight of darkness, you begin to look around with new eyes. The world is not as innocent as it seems. The things we welcome into our homes, into our sacred spaces, often carry more than what we can see. And nothing hides more cleverly in plain sight than symbols. They appear on artwork, clothing, jewelry, and even decorations that seem trendy or spiritual. But not every symbol is harmless. Not every design is just aesthetic. Some are open invitations, doors left wide open for forces that do not wish you well. Symbols have always carried power. From the beginning of time, they've been used to communicate with the unseen. Some symbols are ancient, created to honor the light. But others were designed with a very different purpose: to invoke, to summon, to bind. When witches and dark practitioners want to influence someone without direct contact, they plant symbols. They inscribe them into objects, draw them in hidden places, or give them to others as art, gifts, or clothing. And most people accept these things with a smile, never questioning what they're truly welcoming into their environment. You might be surprised how many symbols you live with that have deep occult meaning. That wall art with the geometric eye, that statue with roots in pagan rituals. That piece of clothing with ancient glyphs you can't even name. If you don't understand what a symbol means, don't give it space in your life. Because symbols are spiritual agreements, and by keeping them near, you give permission without even realizing it. Energy responds to intention. And when an object is created with dark intention, it doesn't need your belief to work. It just needs your presence. It just needs your silence. That's why the enemy doesn't need to shout. It only needs you to remain unaware. Because as long as you keep these symbols in your home, your energy stays vulnerable, your spirit remains under influence, and your peace slowly slips through your fingers while you search for answers everywhere else. Have you ever wondered why some rooms feel heavy for no reason? Why your mood shifts the moment you walk in? Why you start overthinking, doubting yourself, or feeling drained in specific parts of your home? That's not just emotion, that's spiritual interference. And more often than not, there's a symbol nearby acting as a battery, charging the atmosphere with confusion, anxiety, and unrest. You were never meant to live under invisible oppression. You were never designed to carry confusion as your normal. But this is the cost of spiritual blindness, keeping objects that make your soul sick while you chase solutions in the physical world. The truth is, once you remove the symbol, the energy breaks. Once you take down that painting, throw out that necklace, discard that shirt covered in markings you don't understand, you'll feel the shift. It will be subtle at first, a lightness, a sense of clarity. The emotional static begins to fade, and suddenly, you remember who you are again, because darkness only has power in the places you don't pay attention to. Once you shine a light, it shrinks. Once you expose the agreement, it loses authority. You don't need to live under spiritual contracts you never signed. You don't need to coexist with symbols that war against your purpose. You have the right to say, no more. You have the power to choose what belongs in your space and what doesn't. You don't need to be an expert in every symbol. You just need to listen to your spirit. If something feels off, if it creates unease, confusion, or heaviness, it's already doing too much damage. And if it came from someone who lived in darkness, practiced witchcraft, or struggled with deep spiritual unrest, it's time to let it go. Because symbols don't just carry meanings, they carry energy. And your energy is sacred. This isn't about fear. This is about wisdom, discernment, protection. You wouldn't drink poisoned water just because the glass looks clean. So don't welcome cursed symbols just because they look artistic. The enemy loves to decorate destruction. That's how it fools you, by turning traps into trends. But now your eyes are open. Now you understand what's really at stake. There's a reason your spirit always knew something was wrong. There's a reason you felt drawn to this truth. It's not a coincidence. It's a calling. A call to cleanse. A call to rise. A call to protect the space where your soul rests. Because when your environment aligns with your purpose, your life begins to transform. Peace flows, focus returns, strength rebuilds, and the confusion you once carried begins to lift, piece by piece. You don't have to live at the mercy of symbols meant to control you. You don't have to decorate your destruction just to fit in. Your home, your body, your energy, they are yours. And anything that doesn't serve your growth must be removed. You were never meant to be a canvas for darkness. You were made to shine. And now you rise, not in fear, but in power, not in doubt, but in clarity, not as a victim, but as a warrior of light. Once you understand that symbols can open doors, you begin to realize something even more unsettling. Some of those doors weren't just opened, they were built, intentionally. And some were built to watch you, to monitor you, to drain you slowly without making a sound. One of the most overlooked spiritual threats hiding in plain sight is the presence of dolls, figurines, and carved images, objects that seem lifeless but are anything but. They sit quietly, they never move, but they see, and many of them were created for far more than decoration. In the hands of witches, dolls become vessels. They're not toys, they're tools. They're designed to carry the energy of a person, to anchor a spell, to trap a spirit. They're used to transfer emotion, to bind the will, to open a channel. What appears harmless may be holding more than just stuffing. It may be holding a spiritual assignment. You may have walked past one in your home without a second thought. A doll from childhood, a souvenir from a trip, a gift from someone who's no longer in your life. But energy doesn't disappear just because the person is gone. Energy stays. It lingers. It binds itself to things, waiting for access. And in the case of dolls, access is easy, because they often resemble humans. They're made in our image, which makes them the perfect tool to house something invisible. That's why you may feel watched in certain rooms. That's why the air turns cold when you're near them. That's why some nights you can't sleep, because you were never meant to rest under spiritual surveillance. These objects were used in ancient cultures as tools for possession, divination, and binding. And those same practices haven't stopped. They've just become more subtle. Witches and spiritual manipulators don't need you to know the full truth. They just need you to accept the object, to allow it into your space, to position it where it can feed. And many people unknowingly place these objects in the heart of their homes, giving them emotional value, never realizing they've given them spiritual authority too. Have you ever noticed that peace seems harder to hold when certain objects are near? That sickness, conflict, or sadness seems to return again and again without explanation? It's not just coincidence, it's a pattern. And patterns always point to a root. When something keeps stealing your joy and it's not visible, it's time to look at what's silently present. The figurine passed down through generations. The handcrafted doll someone thought you'd love. The carved idol someone brought from a market overseas. If it wasn't birthed in light, it could be carrying darkness. And here's the part most people miss. These objects don't need to move physically to affect you spiritually. Their power doesn't lie in animation, it lies in permission. As long as they are in your space, they are in position. They operate as silent transmitters, feeding chaos into your mind, breaking harmony in your relationships, making you second-guess your purpose, draining you without ever lifting a finger. But you weren't created to be watched. You weren't created to live under spiritual manipulation. Your life, your space, your soul deserve protection, deserve purity, deserve peace. And anything that's threatening that, no matter how small, no matter how sentimental, has to go. Because keeping something that's attacking you just because it once meant something is a dangerous trade. No object is worth your freedom. You don't need to fear these things. You need to confront them. With wisdom, with power, with a decision that you're no longer allowing anything into your space that doesn't align with your calling. This is about becoming conscious, about protecting your energy like your life depends on it. Because in many ways, it does. Your mental clarity, your emotional stability, your spiritual authority, they're all connected to the space you keep. And if something is stealing from you in secret, you can't afford to keep calling it harmless. It's time to scan your environment with spiritual eyes, to feel, to notice, to question the things you've ignored. It's not about becoming obsessive. It's about becoming intentional. Because your home should be a place where your spirit can breathe, not a place where it's suffocated by invisible watchers. The moment you remove what carries dark assignments, you begin to notice an immediate shift. Rest becomes easier. The air feels lighter. The silence becomes peaceful instead of oppressive. That's the power of reclaiming your space. That's the reward of awareness. You don't need rituals, you need resolve. You need to rise in your authority and declare, no object, no memory, no symbol, no statue, no doll, no energy has the right to reside here without serving my peace. What stays in your life must be chosen with discernment. What lives in your home must align with the light. Because this isn't just about objects, it's about ownership. You are the gatekeeper, you are the authority. And no curse, no spell, no watching force can stand against someone who knows who they are and chooses to take back every inch of stolen peace. This is your ground, your atmosphere, your sanctuary. And starting now, you protect it like your life depends on it, because your soul already knows it absolutely does. Once you take back authority over what resides in your space, you begin to realize the war was never just about physical objects. It's about spiritual contracts, silent agreements made without your permission. And some of the most dangerous of these agreements are sealed through things buried near your home, placed on your doorstep, or hidden among gifts. These are not random items, they are tools of witchcraft. Witch bottles, hex jars, curse vessels, designed and deployed to target, bind, and break you from the outside in. They don't look threatening, that's what makes them effective. A bottle filled with pins, hair, herbs, or liquids, a jar wrapped in cord and hidden in your yard, a strange package left at your door. These things aren't meaningless. They are deliberate. Witches and spiritual manipulators use them to direct energy toward you, to attach spirits to your environment, or to cause disruption in every area of your life. They are created with intention, charged with rituals, and sent with purpose. Their goal is simple, to dismantle you slowly, invisibly, and completely. You may not see them at first, but you feel them. The sudden arguments in your home, the heaviness that greets you at the door, the way your progress keeps collapsing just as things seem to improve. That's not bad luck. That's spiritual sabotage. And the source may be buried beneath your feet, tucked in a corner, or hiding among things someone gifted to you with a smile. Some people you've let into your life were never for your good. They came close just to get access, to plant something, to connect a spiritual leash to your future. that handmade item they gave you just because, that odd bottle you found in the garden and didn't think much of, that weird substance poured along your doorstep. It's time to understand, some things are not coincidences, they are curses in disguise, and the longer they remain, the deeper they pull you down. But here's the power you hold. You can break every tie. You can sever every assignment, because no item has more power than your awareness. And no curse can survive the authority of someone who refuses to remain silent. It starts with attention, with noticing what doesn't belong. If you've discovered strange items you can't explain, don't ignore them. If someone gifted you something that always felt off, trust that feeling. Your spirit is wiser than your logic. It sees what your eyes miss. And when it sounds the alarm, it's not paranoia, it's protection. There's no shame in cleaning house. There's no weakness in saying, I don't want this in my life anymore. That is strength. That is ownership. That is how you break generational patterns, spiritual strongholds, and silent sabotage. You remove what was never meant for you. And in doing so, you make room for what was. You don't need to understand every ritual behind the bottle to know it's harmful. You don't need to decode the ingredients to trust your discomfort. If something carries darkness, its presence alone is enough reason to release it. Burying it deeper won't solve the problem. Leaving it untouched won't make it harmless. These things don't fade, they feed, and your delay is their doorway. So act now, boldly, without apology. Cleanse your space not just with prayer, but with decision, with courage, with the mindset that says, nothing has access to my peace without my permission. You were not created to be bound. You were created to walk in clarity, strength, and spiritual freedom. And anything in your life that fights against that must go. Look around your space. Remember the strange seasons you've walked through, the unexplained chaos, the repeating patterns that felt beyond your control. Trace it back. Ask what entered your life before those shifts began. What was given to you? What was found? What showed up without explanation? Because nothing sent to harm you ever arrives by accident. It always carries an agenda. But now you carry authority. Now you see what you couldn't see before. And now you speak what must be spoken. I cancel every curse. I break every assignment. I remove every object that does not serve my calling. Your words are weapons. Your awareness is protection. And your courage is the doorway to peace. Let go of what you were never meant to carry. Throw out what was never meant to stay. You don't owe anything to anyone who tried to bind your life in silence. What matters now is your liberation, your healing, your clarity. Because once you remove what was sent to destroy you, the flow returns. Your mind sharpens. Your relationships heal. Your strength multiplies. That's not magic. It's alignment. You are not weak. You are not cursed. You are not lost. You are rising. And every act of removal is a declaration. I will no longer allow the enemy to live where I sleep. I will no longer share space with sabotage. I will no longer confuse the familiar with the safe. Peace is my standard now, and anything that doesn't match it has no place in my life. Once you reclaim your space and remove what was meant to break you, the enemy searches for another door. And one of the easiest, most overlooked ways it gains entry, straight into your soul, is through what you consume. Not just what you eat, but what you hear, what you read, what you let play on repeat when your mind is vulnerable, your guard is down, and your heart is searching for answers. Because not all music heals, not all books teach. Some were written, sung, or spoken with one purpose, to open your spirit to torment. Words carry power. Every lyric, every chant, every page either plants life or plants confusion. And the most dangerous content isn't always loud or violent. Sometimes it sounds peaceful, sounds poetic, sounds spiritual. But behind that melody or passage is a frequency, an energy, a hidden intention. And if it was birthed in darkness, it doesn't matter how beautifully it's wrapped. It carries a poison that seeps into your subconscious, shaping your thoughts, dulling your discernment, and binding your will to forces you don't even recognize. Some of the anxiety you've been feeling didn't start from within. It started the moment you hit play. The moment that song with hypnotic beats and cryptic lyrics looped in your ears again and again. That moment you open that book with strange symbols, with philosophies that glorify self as God, with rituals disguised as self-healing. These things don't just entertain, they indoctrinate. They don't just enter your mind, they occupy it. Witches and spiritual influencers of darkness understand one thing deeply: repetition creates agreement. What you listen to over and over becomes what you believe. What you read consistently becomes what you follow. They don't need to convince you with logic. They just need to get inside your rhythm. into your playlists, onto your bookshelf, into your routines. Because once they're in, they begin to rewire your frequency. Slowly, subtly, and by the time you notice something is wrong, they've already planted seeds of confusion, rebellion, and spiritual numbness. You start waking up tired, no matter how much you sleep. Your emotions become unstable, your focus drifts, your thoughts spiral, your spirit feels dull. That's not random. That's what happens when your soul is surrounded by frequencies it was never meant to absorb. Not all darkness shouts. Some of it sings. Some of it whispers through poetic language. Some of it calls itself enlightenment. But if it disconnects you from truth, from clarity, from divine purpose, it is deception, and it must be removed. You have to start guarding your gates with intentionality. Your ears are gates, your eyes are gates. Your mind is sacred ground. Stop allowing anything to take root there just because it's trending, just because it sounds beautiful, just because it feels good in the moment. Feeling is not the standard. Alignment is. Truth is. Peace is. And anything that consistently disturbs your inner world, clouds your clarity, or lowers your spiritual vibration is not entertainment. It's entrapment. There are songs you need to delete, books you need to burn, podcasts you need to unfollow. Not because you're afraid, but because you're free. And freedom demands discipline. Freedom requires boundaries. You don't owe your attention to anything that poisons your peace. And you don't need to apologize for choosing clarity over confusion, purpose over popularity, purity over performance. When you begin to cleanse what you consume, everything shifts. Your thoughts clear up. Your energy stabilizes. Your dreams return. Your prayer flows again. And you finally realize how long you've been surviving in spiritual noise. The silence becomes sacred. The stillness becomes safe, and you no longer crave the distractions that once owned your attention. This is what it means to take ownership of your frequency, to become the protector of your peace, to stop making excuses for darkness just because it's dressed in beauty. You were never meant to be passive about what enters your spirit. You were meant to discern, to test, to choose. And now you're doing that with power. This is not restriction, it's elevation. You are rising above what once kept you spiritually asleep. You are no longer a vessel for random frequencies. You are a carrier of light, and your light cannot flow through polluted sound, confused thoughts, or seductive philosophies designed to weaken you from within. You have the power to say no, to shut it off, to close the book, to unplug the noise, because your purpose is too important to drown in someone else's darkness. Your mind is too valuable to rent out to chaos, and your spirit was never meant to dance to frequencies that praise confusion and glorify pain. Cleanse the noise and you will hear truth again. Remove the distractions and your vision will return. Cut off the access and your strength will begin to rebuild, because the enemy can't manipulate a soul that refuses to listen, and you are no longer listening to what leads you away from your light. You are returning to clarity. You are protecting your essence. You are choosing your peace, and this is the sound of your soul taking back its power. When your soul begins to detox from the noise, something powerful starts to happen. You begin to see with new eyes. Clarity returns like sunlight after a storm, and suddenly, things you once overlooked feel different. Objects that once felt neutral now stir discomfort. You pass them by, and your spirit whispers, "That doesn't belong here anymore." One of the most deceptively destructive categories of objects hiding in homes, draining spirits, and blocking breakthroughs is occult artifacts disguised as culture, art, or spirituality. Statues, crystals, tarot decks, Wiccan charms, ancestral altars, dream catchers not rooted in truth, and more. These aren't decorations. They're spiritual devices. And if they were birthed in darkness, they carry darkness, no matter how beautiful or artistic they appear. The enemy is subtle. It packages bondage as enlightenment, rebellion as freedom, confusion as power. It takes ancient spiritual tools from systems that deny truth and sells them as self-care, healing, or personal growth. But not all practices were created to bring light. Some were designed to pull your spirit into alignment with false energies, ancestral spirits, and demonic influence masked as guidance. When you bring these tools into your space, even unknowingly, you invite the energy behind them to stay. And that energy doesn't just sit quietly. It watches, waits, and wears you down. You might say, but it's just a crystal. It's just a sage bundle. It's just a deck of cards. But the spiritual realm doesn't operate through appearances. It moves through agreements, through access, through consent, whether it's spoken, written, or assumed. If you're using a tool designed to summon, to channel, to read, or to shift energy without anchoring it in truth, you are operating on borrowed ground. And sooner or later, what seemed helpful becomes harmful. What seemed enlightening begins to open doors you can't close. Many spiritual artifacts being marketed today are rooted in ancient rituals designed to call on forces that are not of the light. You don't need to believe in them for them to affect you. You just need to host them. Keep them close. Give them space. Because presence equals permission. And where there is permission, there is influence. Influence over your thoughts, over your emotions, over your peace. The crystal may claim to attract abundance, but why has your financial life been in chaos since you brought it in? The tarot cards may feel accurate, but why has your spirit felt heavier, more confused, more disconnected since you started using them? Because accuracy is not always from truth. The enemy can imitate insight, but it cannot bring peace. Peace is the evidence of divine alignment. Clarity is the fruit of truth. And if any object, practice, or tool is stirring restlessness, dependency, or unease, it is not from light. It is time to let it go. You were not created to rely on stones, cards, or rituals to access power. You were created with power already inside of you. The moment you begin searching for guidance from objects, you lower your authority. You silence your spirit. You trade divine discernment for manipulated messages. And in that trade, you open yourself to deception disguised as clarity. This is how the slow spiritual erosion begins, not through dramatic rituals, but through casual trust in spiritual objects that do not serve your true alignment. A crystal on your desk, a statue in your living room, a pendant around your neck, an altar of items you don't fully understand but were told would bring protection. And when things in your life begin to unravel, when your spirit starts to ache, you don't realize the very tools you turn to are the ones creating the disruption. There is no spiritual shortcut. No sacred object can replace the purity of your own awakened spirit. And nothing created outside of divine alignment can heal what was meant to be protected through awareness, truth, and authority. You are the temple. You are the vessel. And what you allow into your sacred space, into your home, into your routine, into your belief system, shapes your energy in ways far deeper than you know. This is the time for courage, to walk through your home not with fear, but with fire, to ask, what am I holding on to that doesn't reflect the truth I want to live in? What am I still allowing because I didn't know better? Now you do. Now you see. Now you choose. Throw away what carries another spirit. Break what was meant to bind. Cleanse what was meant to confuse. You don't need anything that keeps your freedom on a leash. You don't need anything that compromises your peace just to feel in control. The most powerful force you can carry is truth. And the most radical thing you can do is cleanse your life of anything that doesn't honor it. You are not weak for letting go. You are not crazy for feeling something is off. You are discerning. You are awakening. You are rising. And every item you remove becomes a declaration of your authority, a reclamation of your peace, a bold reminder that your soul is not for sale, not for influence, not for games. You don't need tools, you need truth. You don't need rituals, you need restoration. And it begins the moment you choose to protect what's most sacred, your soul. When you remove the tools of deception, something deeper begins to rise, your sensitivity. The fog that once clouded your spirit starts to lift. You begin to feel again, not just with emotion, but with discernment. You sense energy before it speaks. You notice the weight behind people's words, and you recognize that not every connection, no matter how charming, is safe. Because spiritual warfare isn't always waged through curses and rituals. Sometimes it walks into your life wearing a smile. The final and most destructive tool which is used to destroy you is not an object. It's a person. Not every person in your life is sent by light. Some are sent to delay you, to distract you, to keep you emotionally entangled in confusion, chaos, and cycles that drain your strength and silence your purpose. They come with compliments, consistency, and false intimacy. But behind the charm is an assignment, a mission to destabilize your peace, to insert self-doubt, to make you question your worth. And if they succeed, you stop growing, not because you're weak, but because you've been spiritually hijacked by someone you allowed too close. These people are vessels. They may not even be fully aware of what's working through them, but their presence in your life creates patterns that keep repeating no matter how much you try to fix, help, or love them. You give, they take. You bend, they break. You speak truth, they twist it. And slowly, without even realizing it, you start shrinking. You become someone you don't recognize. You second-guess your own intuition. You feel drained after every conversation, but you stay, hoping, praying, trying to heal what was never yours to carry. But you are not here to be someone's spiritual landfill. You are not a dumping ground for someone else's darkness. You are not a rehab center for every soul that refuses to take accountability for their own healing. Your compassion is not a curse. Your loyalty is not weakness. But the moment you allow someone to consistently pull you out of alignment, you have become a participant in your own sabotage. Witches and manipulators target the sensitive, the healers, the ones with light. Because your heart is open and your energy is powerful, they attach themselves through emotional connection, knowing that once your heart is involved, your vision becomes clouded. You excuse the red flags. You justify the toxicity. You call it love when it's actually a slow spiritual death. And it's not just romantic. It can be a friend, a mentor, even a family member. Anyone who repeatedly pulls you out of peace and calls it closeness is not a blessing. They are a weapon, designed not to destroy you with violence, but to slowly drain you of your purpose, your power, your clarity. That's how witches work. Not always through potions and spells, but through people who were sent to steal your light by keeping you bound in emotional confusion. You must begin to honor your spirit more than you fear rejection. You must love your peace more than you fear being alone. Because sometimes the most powerful protection is disconnection. The most sacred boundary is silence. You don't need to explain your awakening to those committed to misunderstanding it. You don't need to fix what God is revealing as toxic. You just need to move with clarity, with courage, with conviction. Cutting ties is not cruelty, it is wisdom, it is survival. It is the recognition that you were never called to carry what's been cursing you in disguise. You were never meant to fight battles that only exist because you let someone stay too long. Some people are not confused, they are committed to chaos. And the longer you stay entangled, the further you drift from your true alignment. But the moment you say enough, something begins to break. The spell lifts, the fog clears, your strength returns. And the energy that once held you hostage starts to lose its grip. You begin to remember who you were before you got drained. You begin to hear your intuition again. And suddenly, peace doesn't feel like a luxury. It feels like your birthright. You are not hard to love. You are just surrounded by those who couldn't recognize your light. You are not too much. You are just too awake for those who profit off of your silence. And now that you see it, you are free to walk away. Not in anger, not in bitterness, but in power, in self-respect, in sacred separation. Let them go. Not because they deserve release, but because you deserve restoration. Let them go, not because you're weak, but because you're done leaking power. Let them go, so you can return to the highest version of yourself, the one who walks in peace, protects their energy, and never again confuses connection with spiritual alignment. This is your turning point. The moment you break the final chain, the moment you understand you are not the object, the target, or the victim. You are the protector. You are the gatekeeper. You are the light. And no demonic tool, no cursed object, no manipulative person will ever again have access to what is sacred inside of you. Your spirit is no longer for sale. Your peace is no longer negotiable. This is your liberation. And it's just the beginning.